My life was my legacy. Decades were spent building Thorne's legacy, a foundation dedicated to public service. I had poured my heart into it and into the political network that supported its mission. Julian was my chosen successor, a protege I had mentored since his early career. I saw in him a reflection of my own ambition, tempered by a fresh, charismatic energy. He was like a son, someone I trusted implicitly with everything I had built, every connection, every dream for the future. The first signs were subtle, almost imperceptible. Small, anonymous reports began to surface, hinting at minor administrative oversights within the foundation. I dismissed them initially, attributing them to the usual political noise. Julian, ever the diligent aide, brought them to my attention with a look of concern. He assured me he would handle these minor issues, reinforcing my belief in his loyalty. I saw no reason to doubt his sincerity, not then. Soon the whispers turned into a roar. Major news outlets picked up the story not of oversights but of fabricated financial scandals and ethical misconduct. The reports were meticulously crafted, full of half-truths and outright lies, designed to tarnish my reputation. My name, once synonymous with integrity, was suddenly dragged through the mud. Each headline felt like a personal assault, an attempt to dismantle everything I had ever stood for. The pressure mounted swiftly. Board members, once my staunchest allies, began to look at me with suspicion. Key donors started withdrawing their support, citing unacceptable reputational risks. Even some longtime colleagues suggested, with thinly veiled regret, that perhaps a period of quiet reflection would be beneficial for the foundation. The message was clear. My presence was now a liability. They wanted me out, and they wanted it to appear as my own decision. I stood before the cameras, a script prepared by my own PR team, announcing my early retirement to pursue personal interests. The words felt like ash in my mouth. I spoke of a smooth transition, of confidence in the future leadership, all while a storm raged within me. Every smile I forced, every platitude I uttered was a betrayal of my true feelings. My public life, my life's work, was being stripped away, piece by painful piece, under false pretenses. Julian, ever the picture of solemn dedication, stood beside me. He spoke eloquently of his deep regret at my departure, praising my unwavering service and invaluable mentorship. His words were carefully chosen, designed to appear respectful, yet they carried an undercurrent of triumph that only I could perceive. He played the role of the grieving protege perfectly, cementing his image as the reluctant yet capable successor. It was a performance worthy of an award. Within days, Julian moved with swift, decisive action. He announced a comprehensive restructuring of the foundation, ostensibly to restore public trust. Key personnel loyal to me were quietly reassigned or encouraged to retire. He took over my office, my contacts, and my entire network, solidifying his control over every aspect of my life's work. The speed and efficiency of his takeover confirmed my darkest suspicions. This had been meticulously planned. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. This was not merely a professional setback, it was a profound personal betrayal. Julian, the young man I had nurtured, had orchestrated my downfall with calculated precision. The public humiliation was immense, but the sting of his treachery was far worse. I had opened my world to him, taught him everything, and he had used every lesson to dismantle me. I walked the familiar halls of my home, now feeling like a stranger in my own life. Disbelief warred with a cold, simmering anger. How could I have been so blind? Every kind word, every shared ambition now felt like a cruel deception. My mind raced, replaying conversations, searching for clues I had missed. The injustice of it all was a constant thrum beneath my skin. I knew I had to control this rage. Emotion would only cloud my judgment. This was not the end. It was a new beginning. My reputation had been tarnished, my legacy stolen, but my spirit remained unbroken. I would not let Julian's calculated coup stand. My path forward was clear: I needed to expose the truth, ensure accountability, and reclaim what was rightfully mine. This would require strategic planning, meticulous investigation, and a calm, unwavering resolve. Julian had made a grave miscalculation. He had underestimated the resolve of the man he tried to destroy. I found myself in my study. The quiet offered a new kind of clarity. My mind went over every detail of the past weeks. The attacks were too perfect, too well-timed. This was no random misfortune. I tried to reach out to my former chief of staff. His phone went straight to voicemail. An email to the foundation's accounting department bounced back. Access to my old digital files was suddenly revoked. These small blocks felt deliberate. They were not technical glitches. Someone had moved quickly to isolate me. The speed of it all was telling. It confirmed my growing suspicion. A message came late one night. It was from Alina, my longtime executive assistant. Her words were brief, a warning about new protocols and strict oversight. She mentioned Julian by name. Alina's message was vague yet clear. She spoke of Julian's firm hand and unusual directives. It was not an accusation, but a strong hint. She was telling me Julian was behind the changes. The pieces started to fit. Julian had always been ambitious. But I never imagined this level of calculated deception. He had used my trust as a weapon against me. The depth of his betrayal was chilling. This was no sudden, opportunistic move. The precision of the smear campaign, the swiftness of the takeover, the immediate blocking of my access, it was all too perfect. This had been planned for months, maybe years. A cold resolve settled over me. Julian had played his hand, now it was my turn. I would not let him destroy my legacy. This was not about anger, it was about justice and reclaiming my name. I needed to understand his network, his vulnerabilities. My own network, though seemingly fractured, still held loyalties. I would start by discreetly reaching out to those I knew I could trust implicitly. Julian believed he had won. He believed I was defeated, but he had gravely underestimated me. The game had just begun, and I knew exactly where to place my first move. I began my own quiet investigation. My first calls were not to my old political allies, but to retired professionals. A former chief auditor, a seasoned investigative journalist, people who operated outside the immediate political spotlight. They knew how to find facts without drawing attention. They started sending me snippets of information, public records, archived news articles, obscure financial filings. It was a slow process, like piecing together a complex puzzle. Each new piece confirmed my suspicion. The financial accusations against me were too precise. I looked for patterns in the alleged financial misconduct. The numbers, the dates, the specific accounts mentioned, they were all too perfectly aligned. It was not sloppy accounting, it was a carefully constructed narrative. Someone had gone to great lengths to create this illusion. The fabrication was clear. The accusations were not organic. They were designed to fit a predetermined outcome. This meant a coordinated effort, a network of individuals working together. Julian was not acting alone, he had collaborators. My attention shifted to personnel changes within the foundation and my political network. I looked at the months leading up to my forced retirement, not just after but before. Who was moved, who was hired? The changes were subtle, almost imperceptible at the time. I discovered that key individuals, those with access to sensitive data or critical communication channels, had been strategically replaced, or in some cases compromised. Their loyalty had been shifted or their positions filled by Julian's people. This was a long game. The timing was chillingly precise. Each strategic personnel move corresponded with a later stage of the smear campaign. It was like watching a meticulously planned operation unfold in reverse. Every piece was put in place to ensure my downfall. Then a name appeared repeatedly in the periphery of these changes, Marcus Thorne, not a direct member of Julian's inner circle, but a close associate, a fixer. He had been quietly moving within my network for months, facilitating these shifts. This was the first verifiable link. The breadth of the coup became starkly clear. This was not a simple act of opportunism. It was a deeply calculated, multi-layered conspiracy. Julian had not just seized control, he had systematically dismantled my support structure from within. The betrayal ran deeper than I imagined. Knowing the players was the first step. Understanding their methods was the next. I now had a name, a starting point: Marcus Thorne. He was the thread I would pull to unravel Julian's entire shadowy network. The game had truly begun and I was ready to play. I started with Julian's career trajectory. I laid out a timeline of his promotions and key appointments. Each step seemed logical at the time, a testament to his talent. Now I saw them as calculated moves. I marked where his closest associates appeared. They were placed in critical departments: finance, communications, human resources. These were not random hires, they were carefully positioned. This pattern stretched back years, long before my retirement. Julian had been building his influence slowly. He had cultivated a network within my own, right under my nose. It was a patient, insidious takeover. I reviewed Julian's public speeches and press releases. I compared his words then to his actions now. There were subtle shifts, almost imperceptible at the time. He had always presented himself as my loyal successor. His promises of continuity and respect for tradition now rang hollow. He had spoken of upholding my vision, yet he dismantled it so quickly. The inconsistencies were small, but they painted a clear picture of his true intentions. Every carefully chosen phrase, every public endorsement of my leadership now seemed like a part of his preparation. He was laying the groundwork for his eventual coup. He gained trust only to betray it. Julian had crafted a flawless public image, the dedicated, ethical leader, but even perfection has cracks. I began to look for any area where his public persona might not align with reality. No one is truly flawless. I turned to the Foundation's financial structure under his new leadership. A swift restructuring often creates blind spots. I needed to find where his quick changes might have left gaps or created new, unexamined pathways for funds. My next step was clear: gather concrete, irrefutable evidence. Not just suspicions, but facts. Financial discrepancies would be key. They leave trails that are hard to erase. I also needed to examine manipulated communications. Emails, internal memos, public statements. The truth was hidden in plain sight, twisted just enough to serve his narrative. I would uncover every layer. This was the beginning of his professional downfall. I knew I could not do this alone. My first call was to Robert, a lawyer known for his discretion and sharp mind. He understood complex financial cases. I knew he would grasp the gravity of the situation quickly. Robert arrived at my home a day later. We spoke in my study, the doors closed. I laid out the foundation of Julian's betrayal. He listened carefully, his face unreadable. He saw the pattern of manipulation I described. Robert suggested we bring in an expert, a forensic auditor named Evelyn. She had a reputation for finding hidden truths in financial records. Her work was precise and thorough. I agreed we needed her expertise. Our small team began the deep forensic audit of the Foundation's finances. Evelyn focused on the period leading up to my forced retirement. We looked for any fabricated paper trail. Every transaction was scrutinized. Julian's campaign contributions were also a key area. We compared official records with internal ledger entries. We searched for discrepancies for funds that moved in unusual ways. His financial dealings needed careful examination. Evelyn found the first anomaly: a series of large, undocumented transfers to a shell corporation. They were disguised as legitimate expenses. This was precisely the kind of fabricated trail we expected. It confirmed our suspicions. My strategy was clear: expose Julian's manipulation without engaging in a public battle yet. We needed overwhelming evidence first. A direct confrontation now would only allow him to control the narrative. We needed to control the facts. Robert emphasized the need for discretion. Every step had to be confidential. We would build an unassailable case. Only then would we present the truth, ensuring professional consequences for Julian's actions. This was about accountability. As we mapped Julian's network, a critical weakness emerged. A longtime associate of his, Mark, had recently been sidelined. Mark had deep knowledge of Julian's operations. He might be a source of crucial information. Approaching Mark would require careful planning. He was likely feeling vulnerable. We needed to offer him a path to truth, not just an interrogation. This was the next decisive move in securing justice. His downfall would begin with his own network. My team was ready. We had gathered enough initial data. It was time for our first strategic move. We would not target Julian directly. Our focus was on the Foundation's new operations. We prepared a series of anonymous documents. They highlighted irregularities in the Foundation's recent restructuring. These were not direct accusations. They were questions for careful minds. These packages went to a few trusted journalists. They had reputations for thorough investigation. They would not jump to conclusions. They would follow the facts. Soon, small articles began to appear, not front-page news but quiet mentions. They spoke of unusual accounting practices under new leadership. Julian's name was not mentioned. While the leaks worked, Evelyn continued her work. She dug deeper into the financial records. She found more than just irregularities. She found deliberate deceptions. She uncovered specific fraudulent transactions. False invoices, phantom vendors, these were not errors, they were carefully crafted lies, each one tied to my own fabricated downfall. These same documents had been used against me. They were designed to make my actions look corrupt. The irony was not lost on me. Julian had used his own future crimes to frame me. Julian's public response was swift. He dismissed the reports as baseless rumors. He called them desperate attempts to destabilize new leadership. He seemed confident, even arrogant. He brushed off the journalist's questions. He spoke of my disgruntled former associates. He believed these minor inquiries would fade. He clearly underestimated the source of the information. But the seeds were planted. The journalists were now digging deeper. Julian thought he had contained it. He did not know the full scope of what was coming. His carefully built facade was about to crack. The initial reports had done their job. Major news outlets now openly questioned the Foundation's recent financial statements. The quiet whispers had turned into direct inquiries, and the journalists were digging deep. Julian's public statements grew more defensive with each passing day. His claims of baseless rumors now sounded hollow to discerning ears. The pressure was building, visibly impacting his public appearances. Then came the official letter, a formal announcement from a key regulatory body. They declared a full review of the Foundation's financial disclosures. This was no longer just about public opinion. It was an official investigation. I heard through my contacts that Julian's closest advisors were becoming uneasy. Their internal meetings grew tense. Loyalty was being tested under the harsh light of inquiry, and I knew some were wavering. It was the perfect moment to escalate. We had held back the most damning evidence, waiting for the right impact. Now it was time to release another layer of truth, one that would hit closer to home for Julian's personal finances. The new information detailed specific fraudulent transactions. They linked directly to Julian's political campaign, disguised as legitimate Foundation expenses. It showed a clear pattern of self-enrichment, a direct abuse of trust. The public reaction was immediate and fierce. News anchors spoke of a breach of public trust. Social media was ablaze with outrage. Julian's carefully crafted image began to crumble under the weight of these undeniable facts. Julian's public appearances grew rare, then stopped altogether. His once confident demeanor was replaced by a visible strain even in his internal communications. The mask was slipping, revealing the desperate man beneath the carefully constructed facade. One of Julian's key financial advisors, a longtime associate named Henderson, resigned abruptly. The official reason was personal reasons, but everyone knew better. Julian's network was starting to break apart under the pressure. Julian was now fighting on multiple fronts, his control weakening with each passing day. This was not the end, but a significant turning point in his downfall. The next phase of accountability was about to begin, and I was ready. The legal proceedings began with a quiet formality. Our team presented a mountain of evidence. The fabricated financial scandals were laid bare for all to see. Every manipulated document, every false claim was meticulously detailed. The truth was now undeniable. Julian's intricate web of deception unraveled under the harsh light of inquiry. Expert witnesses confirmed the forensic audit's findings. The shell corporations, the hidden transfers, the false invoices all pointed to his deliberate manipulation. His ambition had led him to commit clear professional misconduct. The media, which had once amplified Julian's lies, now reported the truth with equal fervor. Comprehensive articles detailed the full extent of his conspiracy. The fabricated smear campaign against me was exposed as a cold, calculated act. My name, once tarnished, was being cleared headline by headline. Public opinion shifted dramatically. The initial outrage against me transformed into widespread support. People understood the depth of the betrayal. My public vindication was complete. It was not just about clearing my name. It was about restoring trust in the values I had always championed. The integrity of my life's work, the foundation, and my family legacy was fully restored. Donors returned, board members reaffirmed their support, and the public renewed its faith in our mission. Julian's attempt to seize control had failed. He could not destroy what was built on genuine service. Julian faced the professional consequences of his actions. His political standing evaporated overnight. The party disavowed him, his former allies distanced themselves. The very ambition that drove him became the instrument of his downfall. He lost everything he had so ruthlessly tried to gain. He was stripped of his control over the foundation. A new interim leadership was appointed, committed to ethical governance. His carefully constructed network crumbled, leaving him isolated. The power he craved, the legacy he tried to steal, slipped through his grasp entirely. He was left with nothing but the ruins of his own making. I reflected on the high cost of power and betrayal. The journey had been arduous, marked by immense personal strain. But the pursuit of justice, not revenge, had guided every step. The vindication was not a moment of triumph, but a quiet understanding of what was necessary to preserve integrity. My commitment was now to rebuilding the foundation's trust. We would implement new, stronger oversight. We would ensure its future integrity, making it impervious to such calculated betrayals again. My enduring legacy would be built on ethical leadership and transparency, stronger than ever before. Julian had sought to destroy me and seize my life's work. He had underestimated the resolve of a man dedicated to truth. He learned that some legacies are not simply inherited, they are earned through unwavering commitment. And some battles, once engaged, are fought to ensure that justice always has the final word.